Part 2 of APA formatting. Remember when writing that paper, no matter how tired you are or how much homework you have with little time to spare, don't plagiarize. Sometimes it's difficult to know whether you are plagiarizing when you summarize, paraphrase, or use direct quotes. The following two videos will help you distinguish between plagiarism and proper use of other individuals' work.
What is plagiarism anyway? You've probably heard a lot about plagiarism as a student, so what is it? According to Webster's definition, to plagiarize is to steal and pass off the ideas or words of another as one's own, to use another production without crediting the source. Sounds pretty serious when we say that plagiarizing is stealing, as if it's criminal. But plagiarism can carry some serious consequences in school. Each school has its own plagiarism policy or academic honesty policy, but students who plagiarize may get reported to school officials, get an F on the assignment or in the course, and in some cases even expelled from the school. Given these consequences, let's take a look at some sample papers to see what plagiarism really is and how it looks in student writing. We've tagged 10 types of plagiarism to look at more closely. This paper is the clone and represents a highly problematic form of plagiarism. It is a word-for-word copy of text from the original with no quotation marks and no citations. This is clearly plagiarism. In the Control-C paper, the student has attempted to disguise the direct copy and paste by adding in a few original words. This too represents a highly problematic form of plagiarism. The student has deliberately attempted to use the material and then throw off the instructor with a few words here and there. The find and replace looks like the Control-C, but in this case the student intent becomes a question. Did this student intentionally change the words and phrases, or does the student simply not know how to paraphrase a text or put it into his or her own words? Regardless of student intent, it still is plagiarism. The remix has some further problems with paraphrasing, but this time from various sources. Often, this is what students think of when they think of research, pulling sources together into a new whole. But research is quite different and requires good paraphrasing skills. The recycle is a type of plagiarism that many students don't even recognize as a problem. Students typically cannot and should not reuse large portions of a text from another paper they have written. That means students can't recycle papers from class to class. School policies about this differ, so you need to check what your school policy is. One way to avoid this is, as a writer, you can cite your original writing, even if it is unpublished. The hybrid represents a student who has made the paper look like an ethically and accurately written paper, but the student cuts and pastes material from other sources as well. This typically represents intentional plagiarism. Like the remix, the mashup is nothing but a constant stream of outside material with little to no original writing to link the outside sources together. This also represents what a lot of students think of when they think of research, and it's just not the case. The 404 error is an example of plagiarism that tries to throw the instructor off by citing sources inaccurately. Usually, students attempt this when they don't know how to cite sources. You can't be apathetic here. Citing sources takes time and attention to the details. The aggregator has sources cited, but the original writing is not balanced with the sources. In this case, the student has allowed the research to drive the paper's development, rather than use the research to support his or her own writing. The last type of plagiarism is the retweet. In this case, the student knows that he or she needs to cite sources and attempts to paraphrase, but the paraphrase relies too heavily on the original text. Paraphrasing is a skill that takes practice. You can see key ways to avoid plagiarism after reviewing these 10 types. Understand how to paraphrase a text, how to document or cite a source, and how to research so the paper contains original content.
With the difficulties of plagiarism, why do we want to summarize or paraphrase, or even use direct quotes? Well, the answer is simple. We use these three methods for the following reasons. It can provide support for claims or add credibility to our own writing. It refers to work that leads up to the work that we're presently doing. It provides examples of several points of view on a subject. It calls attention to a position that we wish to agree or disagree. It highlights a particularly significant phrase, sentence, or passage by quoting the original. It distances ourselves from the original by quoting it in order to cue readers that the words are not our own. And it expands the extensiveness or the depth of our own writing. There are a few key items to remember. I like to call these tidbits. So before we move on to the examples, I want to share a few APA formatting tidbits with you. Analysis demonstrates critical thinking by reflecting on, explaining, or refuting outside evidence. Conclusion reiterates the main idea of the paper, discusses the writer's unique perspective of the main idea, and offers ideas for future research or inquiry. Documentation style follows APA style, uses headings or subheadings to create logical organization, incorporates internal citations correctly, and presents external citations correctly. Common citations are either summarize, paraphrase, or direct quotes. Direct quotes should be used sparingly. Grammar is important. You should use active voice. Present sentence with subject-verb agreement and evidence has shown that proofreading leads to less errors, and punctuation should be applied using the citation style of the standard American punctuation rules. At last but not least, the tidbit of voice. Voice should be written in third person. Use appropriate tone for the assignment and use signal phrases to separate self from sources such as Dr. Whoever stated, or another example is according to Dr. Whoever. For the remainder of this lesson, you may continue on your own to review examples of summarizing, paraphrasing, and how to use direct quotes. You will also be provided with citation examples. This lesson will be concluded after you review the examples independently. If you have any questions related to content of this lesson, please contact the instructor.